The Discovery Dr. Marcus Reed never expected his quiet night shift at Deep Space Station Omega-7 to change the course of human history. The station floated silently in the void beyond Pluto's orbit, its massive radio telescopes constantly scanning the cosmos for any sign of intelligent life. At 52, Reed had spent most of his career listening to cosmic background radiation and cataloging dead stars. Tonight felt different. The signal appeared at 23:47 hours, cutting through the usual, static like a knife through silk. Reed's coffee grew cold as he stared at the anomalous readings cascading across his monitors. This wasn't random noise or natural phenomena. The pattern repeated every 14 seconds, each cycle containing complex mathematical sequences that made his heart race. The team assembles. Within an hour, Reed had awakened his entire research team. Dr. Nina Volkov, the station's xenolinguist, arrived first, her gray hair still messy from sleep, but her eyes sharp with excitement. Lieutenant Colonel David Park, the military liaison, followed close behind, his uniform perfectly pressed despite the early hour. "Show me what you got, Marcus," Volkov said, settling into her workstation. The data streams filled her screen, alien symbols dancing in patterns that seemed almost musical in their complexity. Park crossed his arms, studying the displays with practiced skepticism. Could be a hoax. Some kid with a powerful transmitter playing games with the scientific community. Reed shook his head firmly. The signal originated from the Kepler 442 system, Dave. That's 1/200 light-years away. No human technology could fake this kind of transmission from that distance. Breaking the code for 72 hours, the team worked without rest. Volkov's breakthrough came when she realized the mathematical constants weren't random, but served as a translation key. The aliens had embedded their language structure within universal mathematical truths, assuming any intelligent species would recognize the patterns. The first translated phrase appeared on Volkov's screen at dawn on the third day. She read it, aloud, her voice trembling. "We are the last children of Zephyr Prime. Our world burns. Our people die. Remember us." The full message took another day to decode, and its contents horrified everyone who read it. The Zephyrians were documenting their own extinction at the hands of something called the Dominion Empire. The transmission described systematic genocide, entire populations herded into extermination facilities, and planets stripped of all life. The Kaoi. Terrible truth. The Zephyrians' final message revealed the Dominion's true nature. For 3 centuries, this galactic empire had been cleansing the galaxy of what they deemed inferior species. 47 civilizations had already been completely destroyed, their histories erased, their worlds left as monuments to dominion. Superiority. According to the transmission, the Dominion operated under a twisted philosophy of genetic purity. They believed only the strongest species deserved to inherit the galaxy, and they had appointed themselves as judges of worthiness. Species were evaluated based on their technological advancement, military capability, and genetic potential. Those found lacking were marked for elimination. The Zephyrians had tried to resist. Their message included tactical data about Dominion forces, weapon specifications, and strategic weaknesses. But their efforts had failed. Their homeworld was dying, their fleets destroyed, their population reduced to scattered survivors hiding in underground shelters. Humanity's Choice Reed transmitted the decoded message directly to Earth Command, bypassing normal channels. Within hours, his station was swarming with military personnel and government officials. The implications were staggering. If the Dominion discovered Earth, humanity would face the same fate as the Zephyrians. General Patricia Hayes arrived on the next transport, her weathered face grim as she reviewed the alien transmission. "Dr. Reed, you understand what this means? We're not alone in the universe, and our neighbors are genocidal maniacs." The Zephyrian message had traveled for over 1,000 years to reach Earth. By the time humans decoded it, the senders were already dead. But their sacrifice had given humanity something precious: knowledge of the threat lurking in the galactic darkness. Reed stood at the observation deck, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed friendly and distant. Somewhere out there, the Dominion Empire continued its work of systematic extinction. Earth remained hidden for now, too primitive to register on their surveys. But that safety was temporary. The question that haunted Reed as he prepared to return to Earth was simple but terrifying. What would humanity do with this knowledge? Would they hide and hope to remain unnoticed? Or would they take action to prevent other species from suffering the Zephyrians' fate? The answer would reshape not just human civilization, but the entire galaxy. The War Council captain Elena Torres had commanded starships for 15 years, but she had never faced a briefing like this one. The secure chamber beneath Geneva's mountains buzzed with tension as Earth's military leaders absorbed the horrifying truth about the Dominion Empire. The holographic display showed the Zephyrian homeworld as it had been. Green oceans, purple continents, cities that sparkled like jewels. And as it was now, a charred wasteland orbiting a dying star. Admiral Robert Kane, Earth's most decorated officer, broke the heavy silence. 47 civilizations completely wiped out. That's not war, that's extermination on an industrial scale. His scarred hands clenched into fists as he studied the tactical data the Zephyrians had died to transmit. Torres watched the faces around the table. General Hayes looked older than her 60 years, the weight of command etched in every line. Colonel Park's jaw was set in determination, while Dr. Volkov's eyes held the haunted look of someone who had stared too long into the abyss of galactic cruelty. The impossible mission. "We have to go," Torres said quietly, breaking protocol by speaking before being asked. All eyes turned to her. The Zephyrian transmission included coordinates to survivor camps. If there are still people alive on that world, we can't abandon them. Admiral Kane leaned forward. "Captain, you're talking about crossing 1,200 light-years to reach a system currently occupied by hostile alien forces. Our fastest ships would take decades to make the journey using conventional drive systems." Torres had anticipated this objection. "Not if we use the experimental quantum fold drive. Project Starleap has been in development for 5 years. The prototype tests were successful. We could reach Zephyr Prime in 6 weeks. The room erupted in heated discussion. The quantum fold drive had never been tested on a crewed vessel over interstellar distances. The risk of catastrophic failure was enormous, but the alternative, leaving potential survivors to die while waiting for conventional solutions, was unacceptable to Torres. Building the fleet. 3 weeks later, humanity's first interstellar battle fleet took shape in the orbital shipyards above Earth. 8 vessels, each representing the pinnacle of human engineering, were hastily refitted with quantum fold drives and every defensive system available. The flagship UES Vengeance would carry Torres and her hand-picked crew of specialists. Dr. Benjamin Cross, the fleet's chief scientist, worked around the clock to prepare first contact protocols. At 34, he was young for such responsibility, but his expertise in xenobiology and theoretical communication made him indispensable. His team included linguists, anthropologists, and cultural specialists, all preparing for humanity's first meaningful encounter with alien intelligence. Commander Jake Morrison arrived on the final transport, his reputation preceding him. The tactical genius had revolutionized military strategy during the Mars colony conflicts, developing new doctrines for 3-dimensional space combat. His presence signaled Earth's serious intent. This wasn't just a rescue mission, but preparation for war. The quantum leap as the fleet prepared for departure, intercepted Dominion communications revealed disturbing intelligence. Long-range sensors had detected the systematic destruction of outer worlds in the Zephyrian system. The genocide was entering its final phase, with orbital bombardment platforms reducing entire continents to molten glass. Torres stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking out at Earth's blue marble one last time. Tomorrow, humanity would take its first steps into the wider galaxy, not as explorers or diplomats, but as liberators. The irony wasn't lost on her. Earth's most peaceful species was about to become involved in an interstellar war. The quantum fold drive engaged with a sound like reality tearing. Space twisted around the human fleet as they plunged into the impossible geometries of folded spacetime. For 6 weeks they traveled through dimensions that had no names. guided only by Zephyrian navigation data and human determination. Arrival at Hell, the fleet dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Zephyrian system, and the sight that greeted them defied description. 3 worlds showed the distinctive scars of orbital bombardment. Space debris told the story of desperate last stands fought months ago. The primary star itself had been artificially destabilized, its output boosted beyond natural limits to cook any remaining life from the inner planets. "Sweet Mother of God," whispered Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station. "It's worse than the transmission described. They didn't just kill a civilization, they erased it." But there was hope. Deep beneath the surface of Zephyr Prime, thermal sensors detected signs of life. The survivors the Zephyrians had died to protect were still there, still alive, still waiting for rescue that they had never dared hope would come. First Contact Dr. Cross established communication using the protocols embedded in the original transmission. The response came within hours. Weak, desperate signals from underground shelters where the last Zephyrians had survived their world's destruction. The first alien face humanity ever saw belonged to Scholar Vextar, an elderly Zephyrian whose 4 eyes held depths of sorrow no human could fully comprehend. Through translation matrices, his words carried across impossible distances. "You came. By the ancient stars, someone heard our message and came." Torres felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. "We heard, Scholar Vextar. We came to help." The old alien's silence stretched for long moments before he responded. "Help? But the Dominion's law of non-interference, you risk everything for strangers." "You're not strangers," Torres replied firmly. "You're people who need help. That's all that matters." As rescue operations began, long-range sensors detected the approaching Dominion enforcement fleet. 12 massive warships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, were accelerating toward the system. The Dominion had noticed Earth's interference, and they were coming to correct what they saw as a violation of galactic law. Torres knew that within hours, humanity would fire its first shots in what would become the galaxy's greatest war. The Zephyrians had given them knowledge, courage, and purpose. Now it was time to prove that some things were worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. The underground sanctuaries. The rescue shuttles descended through Zephyr Prime's poisoned atmosphere like angels of mercy cutting through hell itself. Captain Elena Torres led the first landing party, her environmental suit's filters working overtime to process the toxic air that now choked the once beautiful world. The surface was a nightmare of twisted metal and glass, the remnants of cities that had housed billions now reduced to radioactive ruins. Commander Jake Morrison's tactical team secured the landing zone, while Dr. Benjamin Cross activated the communication beacon that would guide them to the survivor camps. The signal led them through a maze of collapsed buildings and crater fields to a hidden entrance carved into the base of a mountain that had somehow survived the orbital bombardment. The tunnel descended for nearly a kilometer, winding through natural caverns that the Zephyrians had expanded into a vast underground city. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on walls covered with alien symbols. Some appeared to be historical records, others looked like prayers or pleas to gods who had failed to answer. Meeting the last Zephyrian's scholar, Vexitar waited for them in what had once been a library, but now served as the command center for the survivors. The elderly Zephyrian was smaller than Torres had expected, barely reaching her shoulder, with pale blue skin marked by intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the dim light. His 4 eyes studied the humans with a mixture of wonder and desperate hope. 2047, he said without preamble, his voice carrying through the translation device with mechanical precision. "That is how many of my people remain from a population of 12 billion. We are the last fragments of our civilization." Dr. Cross stepped forward, his scientific curiosity tempered by obvious compassion. "Scholar Vextar, we've come to evacuate your people. Our ships can transport everyone to safety." The old alien's 4 arms gestured to encompass the cavern around them. "Safety? Where in this galaxy is there safety from the Dominion? They have been cleansing worlds for 3 centuries. 47 species have fallen before their judgment. What makes you believe your Earth can offer sanctuary? The Dominion's philosophy. As the evacuation preparations began, Vextar shared the horrible truth about the Dominion Empire. The coalition of 12 species had convinced themselves they were the galaxy's rightful inheritors, destined to guide lesser civilizations toward perfection or eliminate them entirely. Their selection criteria were coldly logical, technological, advancement, genetic purity, military strength, and something they called evolutionary potential. They do not see themselves as conquerors, Vextar explained as human medics tended to wounded Zephyrians. In their minds, they are gardeners, pruning away the weak branches so the strong may flourish. We were judged inferior because our technology focused on harmony rather than domination. Our peaceful nature was seen as evolutionary weakness. Lieutenant Sarah Kim documented everything with her recording equipment, knowing that this testimony would be crucial for Earth's leaders to understand the enemy they now faced. The Zephyrians had maintained detailed records of their interactions with the Dominion, including tactical analyses of their military capabilities and strategic weaknesses. The children of two worlds. The most heartbreaking discovery came in the cavern's deepest chambers, where Zephyrian adults had sacrificed their own food and medicine to keep their young alive. Nearly 300 children huddled in makeshift classrooms, their large eyes reflecting trauma no young mind should ever witness. They had been born into a world under siege, raised on stories of blue skies they would never see. Dr. Cross found himself surrounded by curious young Zephyrians who touched his hands with wonder, marveling at his 5 fingers compared to their 4. Despite the language barrier, children's laughter sounded the same across species. One little girl, who couldn't have been more than 6 in human years, offered him a small carved stone, her most precious possession. Her name is Zara Lynn, Vextar translated, his voice soft with emotion. She asks if the sky on your world is really blue or if that's just a story we tell to give hope. Cross knelt to the child's level, his voice gentle. It's blue, little one. Blue like the ocean, blue like her eyes will be when she sees it. The warning arrives. The evacuation was proceeding smoothly when Commander Morrison's tactical team detected massive hyperspace distortions at the system's edge. Long-range sensors painted a terrifying picture. 12 Dominion warships, each over a kilometer in length, dropping out of faster-than-light travel with the precision of a military formation. The lead vessel immediately broadcast on all frequencies, its message translated by the Zephyrian communication systems. Unknown vessels, you are interfering with authorized Dominion cleansing operations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of violating galactic law. Torres responded from the Bridge of the Vengeance, her voice steady despite the odds stacked against them. Dominion Fleet, this is Captain Elena Torres of the United Earth Defense Force. We are conducting humanitarian evacuation of survivors. We will not withdraw. The silence that followed stretched for long minutes before laughter echoed across the communication channel. When the Dominion commander finally spoke, his voice dripped with contempt. Earth? The primitive world in the outer spiral arm? You cannot be serious. Your species lacks the evolutionary development to interfere with Dominion operations. The line is drawn. Morrison's tactical analysis was grim, but not hopeless. The Dominion ships were larger and more heavily armed, but they relied on overwhelming firepower rather than maneuverability. Human vessels designed for speed and flexibility might be able to exploit that weakness if they were clever enough. As the last shuttle load of Zephyrian survivors reached the human fleet, Vextar made an unexpected request. Captain Torres, my people's final gift to you is not just our gratitude but our knowledge. We have studied the Dominion for decades, learning their tactics, their weaknesses, their fears. If you are determined to fight them, at least fight them intelligently. The old scholar transferred massive data files to the human computers, detailed analyses of Dominion military doctrine, ship specifications, and most importantly, information about other oppressed species throughout the galaxy who might join a resistance movement. Torres realized that humanity was no longer just rescuing survivors. They were inheriting the leadership of a potential galactic rebellion. The Zephyrians had planted the seeds of revolution with their dying message. And now Earth would either nurture those seeds into a movement that could topple the Dominion, or watch them wither as humanity joined the list of extinct civilizations. The Dominion fleet closed in. Torres gave the order that would echo through galactic history. All ships, assume combat formation. Today, we show the galaxy that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the odds. The battle for Zephyr Prime was about to begin, and with it, humanity's transformation from unknown primitives to the galaxy's most dangerous rebels. The battle begins. The void between Zephyr Prime and its dying star became a battlefield, as 12 Dominion warships formed their traditional combat formation, a massive wedge designed to concentrate overwhelming firepower on any target. Commander Jake Morrison watched the enemy fleet approach on his tactical display, his mind racing through calculations that would determine humanity's fate. "They're arrogant," Morrison observed from his position aboard the Vengeance. "Look at that formation. It's designed to intimidate primitive species into surrender. They've never faced an enemy that could think 3 moves ahead." The Dominion flagship Eternal Dominance was a kilometer-long dreadnought, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Its commander, War Marshal Thexran of the Valorian species, had overseen the destruction of 7 civilizations. To him, these unknown humans were just another minor inconvenience to be swept aside. Morrison's voice crackled across the fleet communication system. "All ships, initiate Formation Delta. Remember, we're not trying to win a straight fight, we're trying to survive long enough to get our people home." The dance of death. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness between worlds. Dominion plasma cannons unleashed torrents of superheated energy that could vaporize a city, but Morrison had anticipated their tactics. The human fleet scattered, like startled birds, their smaller ships weaving between the massive energy beams with desperate grace. Captain Torres felt the Vengeance shudder as a near miss boiled away sections of their outer hull. "Return fire," she commanded, and humanity's most advanced weapons lanced out toward the enemy. The human railguns and particle beams were primitive compared to Dominion technology, but they had one advantage: unpredictability. Lieutenant Sarah Kim coordinated the fleet's sensor data, painting targeting solutions that allowed the smaller human ships to strike at vulnerable points on the massive Dominion vessels. "Their shields are adaptive," she reported, "but they take time to adjust to new frequency patterns. If we keep changing our weapon signatures, they can't adapt fast enough," Morrison finished, a grim smile crossing his face. "All ships implement Protocol Chaos. Randomize all weapon frequencies every 30 seconds. The Zephyrian Gambit scholar Vextar, safely aboard the rescue ship Hope's Dawn, watched the battle with ancient eyes that had seen too much death. As human ships danced between Dominion fire, he made a decision that would change everything. Accessing the Zephyrian technical database, he opened a channel to Morrison's tactical station. "Commander Morrison, there is something you must know about Dominion fleet doctrine. They have never lost a battle because they have never faced coordinated resistance. But their formations have a critical weakness. They cannot fire on targets directly behind their flagship without risking damage to their own command vessel." Morrison's eyes widened as the tactical implications became clear. "You're suggesting we use their own flagship as a shield?" "I am suggesting that sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted," Vextar replied, his forearms working frantically over his console. "I am transmitting our navigational data for this system, including locations of asteroid fields that could provide cover for an approach. The impossible maneuver, what happened next, would be studied in military academies for centuries. Morrison coordinated a maneuver so audacious that the Dominion fleet couldn't believe what they were seeing. 3 human ships, the Defiance, Retribution, and New Horizon, made a straight-line attack run toward the Dominion flagship, while the rest of the fleet provided covering fire from multiple angles. War Marshal Thexran watched in disbelief as the primitive human vessels accelerated directly toward his massive dreadnought. "They're committing suicide," he told his tactical officer. "No species would be so foolish as to—" His words died as the human ships didn't slam into his vessel, but instead used its massive bulk as cover, sliding behind the Eternal Dominance where his escort ships couldn't target them without risking hitting their own flagship. From this position, the human vessels began targeting the dreadnought's engine arrays with surgical precision. Impossible! Thexran roared as explosions rippled along his ship's hull. No primitive species could execute such tactics, the cost of victory. The battle raged for 6 hours with human ships using every trick in Morrison's tactical manual. They hid in asteroid fields, used debris clouds for cover, and coordinated attacks with a precision that stunned the Dominion fleet. But the cost was terrible. 3 human ships were destroyed, their crews sacrificing themselves to protect the evacuation vessels. Captain Torres felt each loss like a physical blow. These weren't just ships. They were people she had served with, friends she had trained alongside. Heroes who died so that Zephyrian children could see blue skies. When the Courage exploded while protecting the refugee ships, she had to bite back tears of rage and grief. The turning point came when Morrison executed his final gambit. Using the Zephyrian data about the system's gravitational anomalies, he lured the Dominion fleet into a trap. The massive warships, designed for overwhelming firepower rather than maneuverability, found themselves caught in the gravitational pull of Zephyr Prime's largest moon. As Dominion ships struggled to break, free from the unexpected gravitational snare, human vessels struck with coordinated precision. The Vengeance led the final assault, its weapons carving deep wounds in the Eternal Dominance while smaller ships targeted the trapped escort vessels. A new kind of war marshal. Thexran faced a choice no Dominion commander had ever confronted: retreat, or risk the destruction of his entire fleet. As his flagship systems failed around him, he opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Captain Torres. His voice carried a mixture of rage and something that might have been respect. You have violated every principle of galactic law. The Dominion will not forget this transgression. We will return with a force that will reduce your world to cosmic dust. Torres's response would echo through galactic history. War Marshal, you've spent centuries bullying defenseless species. Today you learned what happens when you pick on someone who fights back. Take this message to your Dominion. Humanity is done hiding in the shadows. We know about your genocides, and we're going to stop them. As the battered Dominion fleet limped away from Zephyr Prime, humanity achieved something no species had accomplished in 3 centuries. They had forced the Dominion to retreat. The rescued Zephyrians watched in wonder as their destroyers fled, defeated by the very primitives they had dismissed as irrelevant. But Torres knew this was just the beginning. The Dominion would return with overwhelming force, and Earth would need allies if humanity was to survive. Fortunately, Vexitar's data had revealed something the Dominion had tried to hide. Dozens of oppressed species throughout the galaxy, all waiting for someone brave enough to light the spark of rebellion. The first battle was won, but the real war was just beginning. The Galactic Rebellion 6 months after the Battle of Zephyr Prime, the galaxy burned with the fire of revolution. Captain Elena Torres stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the Liberation, watching as representatives from 43 different species gathered in the Kepler 442 system for the most important military conference in galactic history. What had begun as a desperate rescue mission had evolved into something the Dominion had never faced: a coordinated uprising of every species they had oppressed. Scholar Vextar, now serving as humanity's ambassador to the Galactic Liberation Alliance, had worked tirelessly to contact survivors from worlds the Dominion claimed to have cleansed. The old Zephyrians' network of hidden communications had revealed a stunning truth. The Dominion's genocide was never as complete as they claimed. Scattered survivors existed throughout the galaxy, hiding in asteroid bases, dead worlds, and forgotten colonies. Commander Jake Morrison had spent those 6 months training the most diverse military force in galactic history. Humans worked alongside crystalline Vorthek engineers, aquatic Nereid tacticians, and the energy-based Luminar scouts. Each species brought unique capabilities that Morrison wove into a strategic doctrine the Dominion couldn't counter. The Dominion's response: Emperor Kethavar of the Dominion High Council had never faced a crisis like this. For 3 centuries, his empire had maintained order through overwhelming force and calculated terror. Species that resisted were annihilated so completely that their names were erased from galactic records. But humanity had changed the rules of the game. Impossible, the Emperor hissed, his insectoid features twisted with rage as he reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy. 17 systems in open rebellion, supply lines under constant attack, our own vassal species, questioning our authority. How did these primitives organize such resistance in mere months? General Vorthak, the Dominion's supreme military commander, studied the tactical displays with growing unease. Your Majesty, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They don't seek to hold territory or establish dominance. They strike at our weakest points, disappear before we can respond, then emerge somewhere else entirely. It's as if they understand warfare better than we do.